Greetings, dear friends. Your invaluable support is our strength. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. This greatly helps the growth of our channel. Leave your comments. Your feedback is very valuable to us. And now, to the most important and current world events. Let's go.
In Europe, a massive power outage caused chaos in Spain and Portugal. There were problems in Andorra and parts of France. Millions of people were left without electricity. More than 10 gigawatts of power supply was interrupted. Train and metro services were halted in many cities. Airports were temporarily blocked, including those in Madrid, Seville, Barcelona, Malaga, and Lisbon. Bank card terminals were not working, stores were closed, and there were huge traffic jams on the roads. There were disruptions with the internet and mobile communication. No signs of a cyber attack were detected. This was reported by the EU authorities. The Portuguese power grid operator clarified that the cause of the failure was a very rare phenomenon. Due to a temperature drop, an induced atmospheric vibration occurred, leading to abnormally large oscillations in the ultra-high voltage lines, similar to strings on a harp. It will take a week to fully complete the repair work.
At first, everyone thought it was some local outages. But it soon became clear that there was no power across the entire country, as well as in Portugal and some regions of France. All electric transport stopped everywhere. High-speed trains, commuter trains. In the metro, people had to be evacuated. At some stations, people waited for buses for 2 to 3 hours to be taken away from there. All lighting was completely turned off, and, well, lighting isn't the main concern right now. It's mainly the traffic lights. Naturally, the entire internet went down and mobile communication also dropped. Well, and the most reliable source of information now, of course, remains the radio.
On RBC, the main news in the studio with Sergei Krasnov. Hello. Vladimir Putin announced a ceasefire for humanitarian reasons during the days of the 80th anniversary of victory, from midnight on May 8th to midnight on May 11th. All military actions will be halted during this period. Moscow believes that Kyiv should follow this example, but in case of violations by the Ukrainian side, the Russian army will provide an adequate and effective response, according to the Kremlin statement. They also emphasize that Russia is ready for peace talks without preconditions aimed at addressing the root causes of the Ukrainian crisis. Kyiv has not yet officially supported the ceasefire. The Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs only stated that the fire needs to be stopped immediately and for at least 30 days. The White House indicated that the U.S. president is dissatisfied with both sides.
He thinks he is increasingly frustrated with us. He is becoming more disappointed in the leaders of both countries. Vladimir Putin proposed a temporary ceasefire. President Trump made it clear that he wants to achieve a permanent ceasefire to stop the killings, to stop the bloodshed. President Trump remains optimistic that a deal can be reached. But he is also a realist, and both leaders need to come to the negotiating table to agree on an exit from the conflict.
Vladimir Putin had already announced an Easter truce in April. Both sides accused each other of violations at that time, but overall there was a decrease in combat activity. In December, Russia proposed a Christmas truce, but Kyiv refused to adhere to it. Moscow also noted that they are ready to agree to a long-term cessation of strikes if the West does not use the pause to transfer weapons to Ukraine. But the European Union emphasized that they do not agree and will continue supplying the Ukrainian armed forces. Another truce should demonstrate that Moscow is ready for a ceasefire, experts point out. The question is whether the West and Kyiv are ready for this. Russia is demonstrating its goodwill, so to speak, and a certain careful approach to humanitarian issues. The second point is that in doing so, Russia partially demonstrates its readiness to resolve the conflict, but on fair terms, and taking into account the national security and national interests of the Russian Federation. And finally, the main point, in fact, in my opinion, is that the 200th anniversary of the Great Victory is a sacred holiday not only for Russia, yes, but also for a certain part of Ukrainian society. Much will depend, of course, on Kyiv's position, because right now, of course, Zelensky is in a difficult situation. That is, in fact, by supporting the truce, yes, he thereby, in fact, joins the celebration of Victory Day, yes, of the Soviet people in the Great Patriotic War? Yes. And including over his current allies, if we consider the same Germany or some other European countries. Therefore, here it's difficult to say how both the Ukrainian leader and the Ukrainian elite will react purely psychologically, because we saw that as a result of the first Easter truce. In fact, it was relatively observed, and to a greater extent even not observed, and strikes were made on our positions, which forced us to respond. Volodymyr Zelensky is ready to give up claims to Crimea, stated U.S. President Donald Trump, but noted that Zelensky again asked him for weapons during a brief meeting at the Pope's funeral. He told me that he needs more weapons, but, you know, he's been repeating this for 3 years. What do you think, Mr. President? Is Zelensky ready to give up Crimea? Oh, I think so. Listen, Crimea was 12 years ago. That was President Obama. They gave it up without a single shot. So don't talk to me about Crimea. Talk to Obama and Biden about Crimea. And remember, this is Biden's war. This is not Trump's war. There have been no new statements about Crimea from Kyiv yet. Earlier in Ukraine,
Press. Many politicians have stated that they do not recognize the peninsula as Russian. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called this week critically important in the Ukrainian settlement and did not rule out that the states might withdraw from the negotiation process. Meanwhile, Kyiv has proposed a mechanism for economic reparations from Russia. This is a special duty, reported Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal. Kyiv also advocates for the complete confiscation of frozen Russian assets. During negotiations with Washington, this issue was not raised. Trump mentioned that funds for Ukraine's reconstruction would be sourced from an investment reconstruction fund, which the states will establish as part of an agreement with Kyiv on minerals. The signal of the Zelensky office's readiness to resume direct negotiations should come from Kyiv, and this has already been stated by the president's press secretary, Dmitry Peskov.
Well, from Kyiv, at least Kyiv should take some actions in this regard. However, there is a legal prohibition on this. So far, we do not see any actions.
In Kyiv, it was acknowledged that the assassination of Russian General Yaroslav Moskalik was organized by Ukrainian special services. The secretary of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on National Security, Roman Kostenko, also stated that Ukrainians will continue to organize such terrorist acts.
This is the correct work of our special services. This is the correct work of our special services. Even if we reach a cessation of the war in the near future, the work of the special services will only begin. And this direction will be the main task of our special services and the development of our security service of Ukraine for the next 10, 20, 30 years, as long as it takes.
The general died on April 25th when an explosive device went off in a car in Balashika. As it turned out, the deputy head of the main operational directorate of the general staff lived in a regular house without security. The next day, Ignat Kuzin, who planted the bomb, was detained. He stated that he worked for the SBU for $1,000 a month. He was promised a bonus of $18,000 for the general's assassination. The election of the new pope, will begin on May 7th. This decision was made at a meeting of cardinals in the Vatican. From that day, the entrance to the Sistine Chapel, where the conclave will take place, will be closed to tourists. It will conclude only after the pope is elected. This may take several days. But if last time they reached an agreement quickly in just a couple of days, the situation is much more complicated now. This statement was made by Swedish Cardinal Anders Borelius. During the election, the cardinals will be isolated in the church, and to make a decision, a candidate must receive 2/3 of the votes plus one. The election of the new pontiff will be announced by white smoke from the chimney above the Sistine Chapel. By the way, any male Catholic can be chosen as pope even without holding a church office. I remind you, Pope Francis passed away last week. The funeral took place on Saturday. About 250,000 people attended the ceremony. And in the procession from St. Peter's Basilica to the burial site of the Basilica Majors, 400,000 people participated. In Zabaikalsky Krai, a natural fire that threatened the village of Novopavlovka was contained, but 4 houses burned down. Some residents were evacuated. The total area affected by the fire is about 50,000 hectares. 300 firefighters and 53 units of equipment are involved in extinguishing the fire. Additionally, a Mi-8 helicopter with 15 rescuers on board, and an Il-76 aircraft flew out from Chita. A federal state of emergency has been declared in the region. Meanwhile, the head of fire safety in Zabaikalsky Krai, Rinat Kismatulin, resigned to take a break. He will focus on his children and grandchildren, according to the local administration. The Russian government has developed a plan to combat illegal employment. Among the measures are the analysis of the non-working population and their integration into the labor market, as well as combating the substitution of labor relations. This plan has already been approved by the Tripartite Commission on the Regulation of Social and Labor Relations. First and foremost, it is planned to analyze the number of able-bodied Russians who are formally unemployed. According to Rosstat, this accounts for more than 10% of the population, approximately 15 million people. Meanwhile, many are de facto involved in shadow employment. Experts estimate the hidden labor reserves at 7.5 million people, including 1.5 million young people and nearly 5 million older individuals who want to work. The authorities will also address the identification of violations of mandatory requirements in the field of labor legislation, including on-site inspections. This includes salaries below the minimum wage. Meanwhile, some experts note that most job vacancies are in areas where people are extremely reluctant to work, but which can be easily automated. This needs to be addressed first and foremost.
I think the time has come. It's quite natural. Nature seems to be pushing us all towards efficient production. New technologies, digital solutions, robotics, and replacing humans in harsh and monotonous working conditions. These are the jobs that people are not particularly eager to take. But no one, was born dreaming of becoming a locksmith, you understand? Or some kind of assembly line worker. I think that the industry and other sectors where there is a shortage of people need to transition to new technologies, to artificial intelligence, which significantly reduces the number of employed people, and of course robotics.
Participants in the open dialogue at the National are discussing the development of the global economy, centers of Russia. Experts and businessmen from 102 countries around the world present their vision.
We have all gathered here these days, today here in Moscow, to think about how to form a platform for the global growth of our economies and the world as a whole. How to ensure that new investments in people, technology, connectivity, and the environment advance the entire world forward. We have initiated a truly open dialogue. Within this framework, we received around 700 essays from more than 100 countries worldwide. Indeed, people from all corners, from all continents, expressed their ideas about what needs to be done, what interesting projects need to be implemented in order to the world moves forward, so that our countries move forward, so that the welfare and quality of life of our people improve.
The goal of the open dialogue is to unite the capabilities of various development institutions, business associations, and representatives of the business community. Particular emphasis is placed on investments in people, technology, and the surrounding environment. The authors of the best projects will have to defend their ideas, and then they will receive significant support. Paralyzed and unable to speak patients in the United States. Thanks to Elon Musk's company Neuralink chip, they were able to speak words again.
I am recording this video using a brain-computer interface to control the mouse.
This is the first video edited using Neuralink. The implant is located in the motor cortex of the brain, which is responsible for body movement. It connects to the computer via Bluetooth, transmitting signals from 1024 electrodes in my brain. Artificial intelligence processes this data to decode my movements. Neuralink does not read my innermost thoughts. It simply moves the cursor where I want it to go. Bradford Smith from Arizona has been diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. The body is almost completely immobilized except for a small amount of control over the corners of the mouth and eyes. Thanks to the chip, Smith can now type text, which is then transformed into speech, and the neural network generates Bradford's voice.